Jai Gurudev Bela, please unmute yourself.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Narayanam Namaskrutyam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Hari Om, Jai Gurudev. I will just start with a previous paragraph. The Shanti that is one itself. Because this Shanti is identical to oneself, Krishna describes it as Mat Samstha, meaning Mat Adhina, that we always obtains in the Paramatma, because Paramatma does not move at any time. It is Kutastha, immutable. It does not get involved with anything and does not stand opposed to anything either. If there is opposition, there is some rub or resistance, which is Ashanti. Shanti is identical with Paramatma in that it is not opposed to thought, it is not opposed to the world, it is not opposed to knowledge, it is not opposed to ignorance, it is not opposed to anything. At the same time, it lends itself to everything. Thus, the meditator gains this Shanti, this freedom or liberation. Mat Adhinam Shantim Adhigacchati. Nirvana Paramashanti does not depend upon the condition of the mind, whereas the Shanti that depends on one's mental state is always subject to becoming disturbed. Here, Atma is called Shanta because it is a description, a Lakshana, revealing the nature of Atma. This must be clearly understood. This Shanti is not something that sticks to Atma as an attribute like the blue of a blue pot. An attribute Visheshana distinguishes an object from all other objects belonging to the same species. Otherwise, attributes are not required. For example, if all pots were blue, you would not need to use the word blue. Attributes by definition can be perceived. When we say Atma is Shanta, the Shanti in Atma Kshamyatam, I don't know why the screen suddenly disappears. When we say Atma is Shanta, the Shanti in Atma is not something that is perceivable, but the word itself points out the nature of Atma. Therefore, it is Lakshana, not attribute of Atma. Superposition and negation. The conditions of the mind, like agitation, are superimpositions on Atma which is Chaitanya, consciousness, that which obtains in all conditions and it is independent of all conditions, free of all conditions. Words like Shanta negate the superimposition, revealing the Swarupa of Atma as something independent of the Ashanti that is superimposed upon Atma when we say Atma is Ashanta. Therefore, this Shanti is not a conditional Shanti. It is Swarupa Shanti. Because it is not conditional, it is called Swarupa. Atma is free from any form of vritti, thought, even though vrittis are not free from Atma. When the vrittis happen and there is an appreciation of Atma as Aham Shantah, the vrittis do not disturb the Shanta Atma. This is what is meant by Nirvana Parama Shanti, a Shanti that is purely in the form of knowledge recognition. The one who recognizes oneself as the Paramatma and understands the Swarupa Shanti of Paramatma is said to have gained this Shanti because he or she has gained the knowledge. Such a person is called yogi here, not in terms of the eightfold yoga called Ashtanga Yoga, but purely in terms of the knowledge alone. In the next verse, Krishna points out certain other conditions that make a life of contemplation possible. Natyashnatastu yogosti na chaikantamanashnatah na chati swapnashilasya jagrato naiva cha Arjuna. Arjuna, O Arjuna, atyashnatah. Atyashnatah, for one who eats too much, too, indeed, yoga na asti, meditation is not, cha, and na ekantam anashnatah, not for one who does not eat adequately at all, cha, and na ati swapnashilasya, not for one who sleeps too much, cha, and eva, indeed, na jagratah, not for one who is always awake. Meditation is not for one who eats too much or for one who does not eat at all adequately. No, indeed, O Arjuna, it is for one who sleeps too much or who is always awake. Here, Krishna mentions the discipline with reference to eating required for meditation. He does not go into details, but simply makes the point that extremes in terms of the quantity of food eaten were not conducive to meditation. Later, he also talks in a general way about what one should and should not eat from the standpoint of the sattvika, rajasika, and tamasika aspects of food. There is a certain quantity of food that is acceptable to a person, and beyond that, one should not eat if one wants to be able to meditate. Thus, Krishna says here that for the overeater or the poor eater, there will be no meditation, no yoga, even though there may be bhoga, enjoyment, at least for the time being. And if there is too much bhoga, roga, disease may follow, just as it may for the one who eats too little. Yoga is the opposite of bhoga and roga. For the one who is a bhogi or rogi, a life of meditation and contemplation is not possible. Yoga nasti. Here, meditation refers to Saguna Brahma Dhyana and contemplation refers to Nirguna Brahma Dhyana as discussed earlier. In his commentary of this verse, Shankara quotes from the Veda, Yadu hava atma sammitam annam tadvati tanna hinasti yad bhuyo hinasti tad kaniyo na tadvati. Arthat, indeed the food that is acceptable to oneself in quantity and quality will protect, nourish, it will not destroy the person. The food that is more destroys. That which is less does not protect. Food eaten in the proper quantities will not bring about the diseases that destroy a person who habitually overeats. No specific amount of food is prescribed. You eat only to your own known limit. Similarly, if one does not take enough food, the food eaten will not nourish the person. It will not destroy the person, but it will not provide the necessary nourishment either. Thus, one who overeats, atyashnata, and one who undereats, anashnata, will not be fit for meditation. The yogi discussed here is a person who neither overeats nor undereats. He or she eats only what the stomach allows. Shankara quotes a Vakya concerning the quantity of food to be eaten. There is a footnote. Ardhamashanasya savyanjanasya trutiya mudakasya tu vayo sancharanartham tu chaturthamavasheshayet. Arthat, half the stomach is for solid food, the third quarter is for water or other liquids, and the fourth quarter is to be left empty so that there is enough space for the churning that takes place during the digestive process. For those who cross these boundaries, there will be no meditation. Naturally, a person who does not eat enough will be tired and will not be able to sit for meditation. And a person who eats too much will be sleepy, which is also a problem. Thus, there has to be a certain measure applied to the food that one eats. But please do not ask, Swamiji, how do I know when I have filled half the stomach? When you feel like having another helping, don't. Just stop eating. That's all. So till here we had seen yesterday and we had a good manana also. The discipline of sleep. Equally important to the discipline required in terms of the amount of the food one eats is the discipline in terms of the amount of sleep one gets. There are people who sleep so much that even when they are awake, they are sleepy. This oversleeping goes along with overeating and a lack of exercise. For one who oversleeps, ativa swapnashilasya, there is no meditation, yoga nasti, nor is there meditation for the person who deprives himself or herself of sleep because he or she wants to meditate. Having heard that 4 a.m. in the morning is the best time to meditate, if a person goes to bed at midnight and gets up at 4 a.m. to meditate, the meditation becomes sleep in no time. In the past, when there was no electricity and people went to bed as soon as it was dark, waking up at 4 a.m. was natural. But now the situation is quite different. In fact, there are people who wake up, go to work, and live their lives after dark. So, for the one who does not get adequate sleep, who is awake all the time, Jagrat, there is no yoga because having so little sleep, the person will be sleepy all the time. The unfortunate thing here is that both types of people, those who sleep too much and those who sleep too little, end up sleeping. Thus, Krishna says here, there is no yoga, no contemplative life for either of them. How then is this yoga to take place and for whom? The answer is given in the next verse. युक्ताहार विहारस्य युक्तचेष्टस्य कर्मसु युक्तस्वप्नावबोधस्य योगो भवति दुःखः. Yukta ahara viharasya, for one who is moderate in eating and other activities. Karmasu, with reference to one's duties. Yukta cheshtasya, for one who is moderate in effort. Yukta swapna avabodhasya, for one who is moderate in terms of sleeping and waking hours. Dukkha, the destroyer of sorrow. Yoga, meditation, bhavati, becomes. Yuktarhara viharasya karmasu yukta cheshtasya yukta swapna avabodhasya dukkha yoga bhavati. For one who is moderate in eating and other activities, who is moderate in effort with reference to one's duties and to one's sleeping and waking hours, for such a person, meditation becomes the destroyer of sorrow. This is very beautiful. I will just read the meaning once again. For one who is moderate in eating and other activities, who is moderate in effort with reference to one's duties and to one's sleeping and waking hours. For such a person, meditation becomes the destroyer of sorrow. Again, this verse names the person and describes the qualifications required for meditation in the same compound. Yukta here means proper in terms of having a sense of proportion in all of one's activities. The person is described here as Yukta Ahara Vihara, one whose eating and other activities are proper. Yukta Cheshta, one whose activities are proper. And Yukta Swapna Avabodha, one whose sleeping and waking hours are properly apportioned. In other words, this person follows a certain life of discipline, which in itself is a yoga that destroys the sorrow of samsara. Yogo bhavati dukkhada. In his commentary to this verse, Shankara explains the compound yuktahara vihara. He says, anything taken in by you is called ahara. Ahriyate iti ahara, which in the present context means food, anna. Vihara refers to the moving around that you do in terms of activities like walking, running, etc. Therefore, the person for whom both of this ahara and vihara are proper, meaning that they are done with the proper sense of proportion, is called yukta ahara vihara. In other words, they are not allowed to become obsessions, which is always possible, especially in terms of food. This is so beautiful. So we have to be moderate in terms of food, I believe in terms of sleeping, and even in terms of the activities which we perform. They can be in form of exercise or they can be in form of other activities. We have to be moderate in everything. Then only the yoga becomes the cause for our dukkha nivaranam.
And ahara is not just the food that we eat, it is any input to the senses.
Yes, vichara also.
Ultimate ahara is how we feeding the senses, either from the sight, from hearing, from touch, taste, all of that. So that includes what we see, what we hear.
Yeah, even our thoughts, isn't it? Our thoughts also, that is also food for our.
Yeah, thoughts, I think, is an effect of feeding the senses. That comes as an after thing, no? But what we are doing with the senses directly, that becomes ahara. It is not just the food that we eat. It is what we watch on television, for instance, or on the mobile? What is the kind of uh, reading that we're doing? What are we listening to all the time? All that also becomes ahara.
Yes, so beautiful. Mm. Spiritual obsessions. Spending all one's time planning meals, for example, is definitely an obsession. Ahara, food, can take up your entire life. It even becomes a religion for many people. Whereas for others, some form of exercise becomes a religion. You may eat only junk food and be obsessed with getting it out of your system by doing aerobics for hours every day. In this way, aerobics too becomes a religion. Whole lifetimes are spent exercising. For what? There are people who exercise so much and are so tired afterwards that all they do is eat and go to sleep, only to repeat the same cycle again the next day. No activity should be given this kind of time. Therefore, Krishna says here, whatever the activity, it should be yukta. There should be a sense of proportion. Otherwise, ahara can get you and vihara can also get you. What you eat and how much you eat can become an obsession, and for a spiritual seeker, eating can become a spiritual obsession. Such a person thinks that eating properly is being spiritual, whereas in fact, eating properly is a matter of health, nothing else. A demon can eat properly and still accomplish all his demonic activities in a disciplined way.
Jai
A
Gurudev
thief.
Bela, your voice is breaking up a bit.
Oh, shall I read? Yeah, because there is unstable internet. Is it breaking too much? Should I?
The last two, three sentences, please read, and we'll see. In case it's continuing to break up, one of us will take over.
Yeah, yeah. Please tell me. Let me know. Okay? Yeah. What you eat and how much you eat can become an obsession, and for a spiritual seeker, eating can become a spiritual obsession. Such a person thinks that eating properly is being spiritual, whereas in fact, eating properly is a matter of health, nothing else. A demon can eat properly and still accomplish all his demonic activities in a disciplined way. A thief may follow a proper diet and exercise daily, but still he continues to commit crimes. Therefore, yukta is a very important word here, meaning the one who has a sense of proportion in all things. One who is yukta cheshta, with reference to all activities. Karmasu is one who does not waste his or her time fuming and fretting because there is a lot to be done. This person performs each activity deliberately, consciously, one by one. In this way, everything gets done efficiently and in the proper order. Cheshta refers to any movement, including those of the hands and legs. The Yukta Cheshta, therefore, is also a person who does not waste the movements of his or her limbs while performing various activities. Was it my voice is okay, Brahmaraji and everybody? If you want me to repeat, or
Yes, it
if
is
you want.
okay. It's fine. Just the Yukta Cheshta, if you can repeat once, not because your voice was not clear, just
Yeah,
that you repeat it once.
yeah. One who is Yukta Cheshta with reference to all activities. Karmasu is one who does not waste his or her time fuming and fretting because there is a lot to be done. This person performs each activity deliberately, consciously, one by one. In this way, everything gets done efficiently and in the proper order. Chesta refers to any movement, including those of the hands and legs. The Yukta Chesta, therefore, is also a person who does not waste the movements of his or her limbs while performing various activities. Does it mean that multitasking to be avoided, Brahmaraji?
Um, I don't
Or
know.
you?
Yeah,
Hmm.
even multitasking, if you're doing it with that conscious awareness and you're not being rushed into it, you're not feverish about it, you're not complaining that you've got so much to do, that also is yukta cheshta only, according to me. So
Okay.
You're not
the whole,
wasting your energy.
yeah, the whole point is about being conscious about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And also I think you're enjoying what you're doing. You're not doing it um
Hmm.
with the feeling of rush
Pressure.
and hurry in your mind, with the pressure in your mind.
Correct. Hmm. That is an important condition.
Yeah.
Just I had one doubt. When you're doing multitasking, then are you giving your 100% to any one activity?
Yeah, that is also a very,
What do we know? Then in that case, we need to understand what do you mean by multitasking as an example. See, when you're multitasking, if you break up the different tasks at any one point, if you're doing just that one task, it seems to the onlooker that you're multitasking, that you're involved in doing XYZ things, say three different things. But for the person who's doing it, he is doing that one thing at that point and he takes up the other one. Like for instance, if you consider someone like a coordinator of any course, maybe the coordinator is multitasking in a way because organizing the venue, for instance. He's also organizing the volunteers. He's trying to get registrations. So in a way there is multitasking happening, but any one point he's focused on. If he's focused on just that, he's still giving his 100%, isn't it? It is not like at the same time he is looking at organizing, volunteering and getting registrations. No, he's split up his tasks in the multiple tasks, and at that point, whatever he's doing, planning for instance, he's doing only that at that point. But he includes a lot more in his kitty. It is not just that one thing I will do and I'm only going to do that. I don't know whether I was able to convey, but um,
I think being in the present moment again, it comes to
yeah.
that.
Yeah, there
At
was a
that,
story of Akbar. He was in the court, and since he had such a big kingdom, the court would be in progress every day. And like we have a Saturday, Sunday holiday, the kings during those times would go hunting into the forest. So on a Friday afternoon, he was sharpening his arrows with his knife. And he was also listening to the happenings that were going on, the events in the court. Since he was multitasking, by mistake his thumb got cut. And he said, I, such a big emperor, my thumb got caught. Anybody in my kingdom, an ordinary person's thumb could be caught. Why me? That happened whilst multitasking. So when you are not giving 100% to any one activity. He was doing two activities simultaneously.
What were the two activities he was doing?
He was sharpening his arrows for going hunting the next day. And he was
Mm-hmm.
also listening to the goings on in the court. There are always some happenings for which they come to the king. Na? The king's court is in progress. And he has to sit in judgment over things and decide over matters in the court.
I think it depends on the type of activities also. As Brahmaraji said, there are certain activities like as a homemaker, I can say while cooking, I have to do so many times multitasking while cooking. So it depends on the activities. If you are kaushal, if you are kaushal, what is the exact word?
I really don't know, because I have seen, like, suppose a housewife is cooking and she, from the filter, she has put a pipe into the matka to fill water, and the water may simply overflow, and then she has to do a lot of cleaning because she was doing multitasking. I've seen such common examples. So this just came up for me. I don't want to dispute or anything, but whilst multitasking, this has happened when you're not giving 100% to one activity.
Yeah, I completely agree with you that being 100% in what you're doing is important. But at the same time, um, if you break it down, correct, it's only doing a single task at a time. But I think all of us are actually multitasking in so many ways. You look at the human body itself, it's an example of multitasking, isn't it? Although all those activities are happening involuntarily. Similarly, when you're doing anything, are you actually only doing that? I don't know. It's a point for us to, I think, discuss and have some deeper understanding.
Example, while eating, you see the TV also many times.
That is multitasking. That is not allowed. That of course, is not what we're talking of. What I'm saying is, consciously, if you're doing it, then it would, yeah, maybe we should get a proper example. Like although I've given that example of the coordinator who's doing all these, look at Gurudev. Of course, Gurudev is a Siddha. We not compare ourselves with that, but
we will remember this word.
yeah, I think we'll continue to
activity.
read.
Yeah,
Correct.
and we will remember this word deliberately, consciously, one by one. That he performs each activity deliberately, consciously, one by one.
Yeah, this is the correct way. He's also a person who does not waste the movements of his hand or limbs while performing various activities.
Can you just read that one sentence again, Bela?
Yeah, I will read the whole. One who is yukta cheshta with reference to all activities, karmasu, is one who does not waste his or her time fuming and fretting because there is a lot to be done. This person performs each activity deliberately, consciously, one by one. In this way, everything gets done efficiently and in the proper order. Cheshta refers to any movement, including those of the hands and legs. The Yukta Cheshta, therefore, is also a person who does not waste the movements of his or her limbs while performing various activities.
See here, this person performs each activity. That is multitasking only. But does one by one, as Brahmara said, consciously. You know, I think this is correct. As Brahma said, this person perform each activity, not one activity, deliberately, consciously, one by one. Correct.
But what Persiji said is also like, supposing there is a person who's listening to something, who's listening to music, like all of us on the Manana, we are listening, but are we also doing some other activity? So that becomes multitasking. Simultaneously, you're doing two different things. That is what Persiji is brought up as multitasking.
Yeah.
The example of the housewife filling the bucket with water, and she's also doing some other activity, for instance. Or she has something on the stove when she's filling the pot. So that is also, I mean, you're clamoring your mind with too many activities. Then that does not become yukta cheshta.
I think
So
in
anyway,
the later paragraph he's explaining, Swamiji.
right. So let's go ahead and
Yeah.
read.
Yeah. Why one needs a sense of proportion in one's activities. We all know what happens if we want to do too many things at the same time. The end result is that nothing gets done. You want to do a certain thing and suddenly you remember something else. So you leave what you are doing and go to the other activity. Then you remember something else and off you go again. Some people cannot even take a bath without becoming distracted by other things they want to do at the same time. These people are ayukta cheshtas, whereas ayukta cheshta does each thing that is to be done deliberately and consciously. Even the hand movements of the person are done consciously. In fact, this is what the life of a Zen master is all about. Watching his or her every movement, watching what the hands are doing, and where they go becomes a form of meditation for the person. However, one need not go that far, the point being that a sense of proportion in all activities is necessary so that nothing becomes an obsession. There is nothing to be gained from an obsession, but there is something to be gained from being conscious about what you do. What is gained is a sense of alertness. Thus, the word yukta means that you are conscious about what you do and you do what is to be done. In this way, there is an inner leisure that enables you to gain the knowledge. I will read this paragraph again. Why one needs a sense of proportion in one's activities. We all know what happens if we want to do too many things at the same time. The end result is that nothing gets done. You want to do a certain thing and suddenly you remember something else. So you leave what you are doing and you go to the other activity. Then you remember something else and off you go again. Some people cannot even take a bath without becoming distracted by other things they want to do at the same time. These people are ayukta cheshtas, whereas ayukta cheshta does each thing that is to be done deliberately and consciously. Even the hand movements of the person are done consciously. In fact, this is what the life of a Zen master is all about. Watching his or her every movement, watching what the hands are doing, and where they go becomes a form of meditation for the person. However, one need not go that far, the point being that a sense of proportion in all activities is necessary so that nothing becomes an obsession. There is nothing to be gained from an obsession, but there is something to be gained from being conscious about what you do. Please remember this sentence. I will read that sentence again. There is nothing to be gained from an obsession, but there is something to be gained from being conscious about what you do. What is gained is a sense of alertness. Thus, the word yukta means that you are conscious about what you do and you do what is to be done. In this way, there is an inner leisure that enables you to gain knowledge. So we have to remember the consciousness and the sense of alertness.
See, here I'd like to share when, say, we, like Brahmaraji mentioned, about coordinating various different, during an event, you're doing multitasking, you're doing various different things. But at one point of time, you're doing only one thing. But say, even if you're leading various different groups and you get a call, you're talking on the call and you're busy, you're the leader, you get another call. You put the first person on hold. How does that first person feel? Your ego may get satiated that you are very busy. You are the leader. But what does that other person was put on hold? Those few seconds which you put him on hold, how does it make him feel? Are we working with full alertness? I never take another call, never put a person on hold. And then after I finish completely talking, then I call up the other person. I see who has dialed my number and I call up the other person and talk to him. So I'm not, I mean, many people may be able to do multitasking, but I would like to give 100% to every activity.
But here, I would think it is a matter of priority. For instance, I'll give my own example. When supposing we are doing the Manana and I get a call from my hospital, right? So then I'm responsible. If I'm on call, I'm responsible to take the call from my hospital, because that is a priority for me, because nobody else will be able to fit into my shoes there. So at that point, I have no other choice but to put the Manana on hold or delegate this to someone else and then take up the call that my hospital has given, the hospital has called. So I think when we deal with such situations, it's a matter of, I think, priority, which takes precedence, which takes more importance. If I'm on a family call, for instance, and one of my patients calls me, or my not patients, my hospital calls me, I will of course give the hospital's call more importance. I'll put my family's call on hold and then take that up. So I think it's an individual sense of priority that ultimately directs which one you will do. It is not the question of, okay, I'm on this call, so I have to complete this and only then I will take the other call. If there is no sense of urgency required there, then it's fine. What you're doing is fine. If it's only a social call you're getting also from the other person, it's fine. But otherwise, I think a priority is what will guide your actions. For instance, if you get a call from Gurudev and you're on the call with a volunteer, of course, you're going to either put the volunteer on hold or tell them you'll call them back and then speak to Gurudev, right?
Yeah, I think here Swamiji is more focusing. Yeah, please go ahead. Savitaji, please go ahead.
You can go on. I don't think there's anyone wanting to share, Bila.
Yeah, I heard
We
her.
maybe when we read further, we'll
Yeah.
get some clarity.
Yeah, yeah. You must decide for yourself what is proper. The person discussed in this verse is also called Yukta Swapna Avabodha, one for whom there is a sense of proportion with reference to sleep, swapna, and waking hours, avabodha. Again, please do not ask me how many hours you should sleep. What is proper for one person is not proper for another because the amount of sleep required depends on several factors such as how many hours you slept as a child and your constitution. Sleep for as many hours as you require. The amount of time you sleep can be altered a little, perhaps by half an hour or 45 minutes. But changing the time you sleep by any more than this is likely to affect your whole day. You will walk around like a zombie and be completely useless. Therefore, follow what your constitution tells you. It knows what it needs and it tells you. And if it does not get enough sleep, it tells you that also. If, for example, you find yourself always feeling drowsy, this may indicate that you require more sleep. We must understand that the word yukta is used very cautiously here because there is no set rule that applies to everyone all the time. Each person must decide for himself or herself. It is not correct to assume that everyone should sleep a certain number of hours. There are people who require only 5 hours of sleep and others who require 6, 7, or 8 hours. It all depends on the individual's constitution. I think this is very important paragraph. I'll read once again. It applies to everything else, I think. We must understand that the word yukta is used very cautiously here because there is no set rule that applies to everyone all the time. Each person must decide for himself or herself. It is not correct to assume that everyone should sleep a certain number of hours. There are people who require only 5 hours sleep and others who require 6, 7, or 8 hours. It all depends on the individual's constitution. So I think here about food, sleep, and activity, I think it must be different for every person, right? So there is no set rule. The knowledge that destroys sorrow. Therefore, for the person who has a sense of proportion with reference to waking and sleep, yukta swapna avabodhasya, there is yoga, yoga bhavati. And what kind of yoga is it? Knowledge alone, the knowledge that destroys sorrow. Duk, dukkha, dukkha harati. This knowledge destroys sorrow by shifting the entire vision of the person who is subject to sorrow. This shift in vision is in terms of self-understanding, self-knowledge, seeing one's swarupa as free from sorrow. By negating the doership, the sorrow is taken care of. Thus, the destruction of sorrow is purely in terms of knowledge, jnana, and this knowledge is called yoga here. This is such an important revelation. I will read the paragraph again. The knowledge that destroys sorrow. Therefore, for the person who has a sense of proportion with reference to waking and sleep, yukta swapna avabodhasya, there is yoga, yogaha bhavati. And what kind of yoga is it? Knowledge alone, the knowledge that destroys sorrow, dukkha. This knowledge destroys sorrow by shifting the entire vision of the person who is subject to sorrow. This sufficient vision is in terms of self-understanding, self-knowledge, seeing one's swarupa as free from sorrow. By negating the doership, the sorrow is taken care of. Thus, the destruction of sorrow is purely in terms of knowledge, jnana, and this knowledge is called yoga here. In his commentary to this verse, Shankara emphasizes that the word dukkha refers to all kinds of sorrow, sarva samsara dukkha. You may say, Swamiji, my life is all right, but the people around me are a problem. This means that your life is not all right. Therefore, commit your life to the pursuit of the knowledge that will destroy all sorrow. Do not commit yourself to anything else, not to overeating or undereating, sleeping too much or too little, or to exercising a lot or not at all. Everything in moderation. We must have discipline in our lives, but in the proper proportions. Yogasanas and pranayama, for example, are useful because they are disciplines. But this does not mean that you should commit your life solely to the practice of yogasanas or pranayama. Nor does it mean that you should neglect such disciplines. In fact, a meditative life includes yogasanas and pranayama. Every seeker follows a certain discipline based on Ashtanga Yoga. The point being made here is that whatever discipline is followed must be kept in proper proportion, meaning that there is neither neglect nor over-enthusiasm. Everything is to be done in moderation, and one should not become a faddist, a very common tendency in some people. Whatever they take up becomes a religion for them because there is something to know rather than to do. One should not become a faddist. Krishna is saying here. A person who is not too inactive, karmasu yukta cheshta, one who is moderate in terms of what is eaten and who does not sleep too much or too little, one who looks after the body properly without becoming obsessive about it, usually enjoys the necessary health to enable him or her to gain self-knowledge. This is an important takeaway. I will read once again. A person who is not too inactive, karmasu yukta cheshta, one who is moderate in terms of what is eaten and who does not sleep too much or too little, one who looks after the body properly without becoming obsessive about it, usually enjoys the necessary health to enable him or her to gain self-knowledge. The human body, Sharira, was defined by Kalidasa as the basic means, sadhana, for gaining moksha, health being a basic requirement. There is a footnote. Shariram adyam khalu dharma sadhanam. So, Kalidas has described our human body as a means for sadhana, for gaining moksha. Therefore, whatever one must do to maintain proper health, one does, which implies eating, sleeping, and exercising properly. In other words, one should not be negligent about these basic requirements. How long will it take? Two questions may now arise. What is to be gained by all this and how long will it take? Living a life of discipline coupled with meditation and contemplation. When can it be said that the person is accomplished? Samsaris always ask this question of when. Before they make a commitment, Naturally, they want to know if such a lengthy, seemingly arduous pursuit is really worth the time and trouble. But here we say, having gained yourself, you do not gain anything because you are what you are, knowing which is the greatest freedom there is. All right, you may say, this freedom that implies total acceptance and the vision that I am the whole seems to be very desirable. But when will I gain this vision? How long will it take? I want to do it quickly so that I can pick up the threads of my life and continue. Again, we say this is life. There is no when or anything. There is just life. There is no life other than this. Everything subserves this. Whether you do one thing or the other, a pursuit like this does not go away from you. It is always right there with you. You have enough material with you, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, to be with yourself. There is a growing clarity about this knowledge which takes its own time, but it does not matter because it's pleasant all the way. I will read this important paragraph once again. All right, you may say this freedom that implies total self acceptance and the vision that I am the whole seems to be very desirable. But when will I gain this vision? How long will it take? I want to do it quickly so that I can pick up the threads of my life and continue. Again, we say this life. There is no when or anything. There is just life. There is no life other than this. Everything subserves this. Whether you do one thing or the other, a pursuit like this does not go away from you. It is always right there with you. You have enough material with you, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, to be with yourself. There is a growing clarity about this knowledge, which takes its own time, but it doesn't matter because it is pleasant all the way. Only when something is unpleasant does the question, how long do I have to do this, come up. The pursuit of self-knowledge is not a prison sentence. It is pleasant all the way because it is Atma Vidya, knowledge of oneself, a knowledge that tells you how wonderful you are. No religion does this. Religions usually tell you how terrible you are and that you have to be saved. Whereas this knowledge tells you that you are already saved because there is no problem here. The question of when does not arise. What must be addressed, however, is the condition of the person who has this knowledge, as we shall see in the next verse. I will repeat this paragraph. Only when something is unpleasant does the question, how long do I have to do this, come up. The pursuit of self-knowledge is not a prison sentence. It is pleasant all the way because it is Atma Vidya, knowledge of oneself, a knowledge that tells you how wonderful you are. No religion does this. Religions usually tell you how terrible you are and that you have to be saved. Whereas this knowledge tells you that you are already saved because there is no problem here. The question of when does not arise. What must be addressed, however, is the condition of the person who has this knowledge, as we shall see in the next verse.
I'm reminded of this beautiful bhajan that Gurudev himself had composed. He says, "You are the person who is doing the journey. Safar bhi tu hai. You are the You're the person traveling, you're the person, you're the goal, and also you are the whole
Kinara.
basis of traveling. Yeah. I forget the starting. Dr. Sharika had sung that.
ढूंढता है तो फिर क्यों
Uh,
सहारा.
no, it is Safar Bhi Tu Hai. I don't know if any of you can remember that beautiful bhajan. Like it is, you are the means, you are the end, you are also the traveler, the whole process of traveling. So the whole thing is actually beautiful. It is not like you get that after a certain time. It is every moment. It's moment to moment. And the solution is you. You have everything in order to get this. So you don't need to acquire anything else, so to say. In fact, it is a process of negation, but then the whole process itself is beautiful. It's very nice. Let me just get those lyrics. I'm not able to remember the starting of that.
Jai Gurudev. Tum hi musafir.
Yeah, thank you. Tumi musafir. Tumi
Tum hi
safar
safar ho. Tum hi manzil.
Tum hi manzil.
Yes. Jai Gurudev.
Manzil. Tum hi safar ho. Musafir ho. Such a very, very beautiful bhajan that is.
Yeah. It's very beautiful. You want me to read
read the
ahead?
next. Read ahead. And then we'll do some Manana.
यदा विनियतं चित्तम् आत्मन्येवावतिष्ठते निःस्पृह सर्वकामेभ्यो युक्त इत्युच्यते तदा. Yada, when viniyatam chittam, the mind which has gained a certain composure, atmani eva, in the self alone, avatishthate, remains, tada, then, sarvakamebhyah, from all the objects of desire, nispruhaha, one who is free from longing, yuktah iti, as one who is accomplished, uchyate, the person is said to be. Yada viniyatam chittam atmani eva avatishthate tada sarvakamebhyah nispruhah yuktah iti uchyate. When the mind has gained a certain composure and remains in the self alone, when one is free from longing from the objects of desire, then the person is said to be one who is accomplished. The word viniyate, I think the meaning is so beautiful. I'll read it once again. When the mind has gained a certain composure and remains in the self alone, when one is free of longing from the objects of desire, then the person is said to be one who is accomplished. The word viniyate is defined by Shankara here as ekagrata, meaning that the mind, chitta, has the capacity to remain single-pointedly on the object of contemplation alone without getting distracted. In such a mind, both the object of contemplation and the meditator, the contemplator, become one and the same, there being no separation whatsoever between the two. The mind has gained a certain mastery, a certain contemplative disposition, a composure by itself, in itself, through the disciplines that have already been mentioned as qualifications for gaining such a mind. And this mind abides in Atma alone. Tasmin Atmani eva avatisthate, which means that there is no separation between the mind and Atma. So beautiful. I'll read this again. The word viniyate is defined by Shankara here as ekagrata, meaning that the mind, chitta, has the capacity to remain single-pointedly on the object of contemplation alone without getting distracted. In such a mind, both the object of contemplation and the meditator, the contemplator, become one and the same, there being no separation whatsoever between the two. The mind has gained a certain mastery, a certain contemplative disposition, a composure by itself, in itself, through the disciplines that have already been mentioned as qualifications for gaining such a mind. And this mind abides in Atma alone. Tasmin Atmani eva avatisthate, which means that there is no separation between the mind and Atma. Thus, for the person discussed here, there is no Atma to be contemplated upon, because both the contemplator and the contemplated are Atma. Previously, there was as though contemplation, whereas now there is no necessity for the as though contemplation, because the self remains in the self alone. So beautiful. I'll read once again the last paragraph. Thus, for the person discussed here, there is no Atma to be contemplated upon, because both the contemplator and the contemplated are Atma. Previously, there was as though contemplation, whereas now there is no necessity for the as though contemplation, because the self remains in the self alone. The mind abides in knowledge alone. And how does this contemplator's mind abide in Sat Chit Ananda Atma? How is it located there? Is it like two objects, one sitting upon the other? No, the mind abides in the Atma purely in the form of knowledge, clarity. In other words, the meaning of the word I is no more a matter of conjecture and mistaken notions for the person. It is not something that one has to contemplate upon in order to understand it further. This capacity of the mind to remain in Atma is the meaning of the expression Atmani eva avatisthate here. Having given up all one's concerns and anxieties about the various things that are external to oneself, the person is awake to Atma, meaning that the mind always remains or abides in Atma, and therefore is never separated from Atma. For one who has gained this clarity of knowledge about Atma, there is freedom from longing for all objects of desire. He is nispruha sarva kamebhyah. This freedom is not something that must be gained separately, but is a natural condition of having gained the knowledge itself. If you want me to repeat anything, please let me know. Shall I read ahead?
Yeah, how much more is there for this verse, Bela?
I think, yeah, it is one and a half, 2 pages almost.
Yeah,
Two
maybe.
and yeah, 2 pages. 2 pages are there.
2 pages, no? Maybe we'll
Yeah.
do before we go to this verse. Yeah.
So So I will stop here, or if you want me to repeat or read.
If anybody wants any repetition, that's fine. Otherwise, maybe we can stop here. If you want to repeat any paragraph yourself, you can.
I'll just repeat the last paragraph. Having given up all one's concerns and anxieties about the various things that are external to oneself, the person is awake to Atma, meaning that the mind always remains or abides in Atma and therefore is never separated from Atma. For one who has gained this clarity of knowledge about Atma, there is freedom from the longing for all objects of desire. He is Nispruhaha Sarva Kamebhyaha. This freedom is not something that must be gained separately, but is a natural condition of having gained the knowledge itself. We will just close our eyes for a few seconds and then we will have Manana.
Yeah, go ahead, Bella. Please share.
Yeah, today too many things we have. I will read just the shloka once again. This is an important shloka which we have to, I think, if we remember it, it is like a major takeaway. Yukta hara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapnava bodhasya, yogo bhavati dukkhaha. If we remain moderate in terms of our food, activities, and sleep, then we can have a natural yoga happening, which is a kind of dukkha harata. For one who is moderate in eating and other activities, who is moderate in effort with reference to one's duties and to one's sleeping and waking hours, for such a person, meditation becomes the destroyer of sorrow. Everyone kindly share your takeaways. So beautiful today. If you want me to read any paragraph again, please let me know.
Yeah, I think there are beautiful takeaways. One is, of course, this yukta hara viharasya, moderation in what you eat, how much of sleep you get in your activities. But then a caution is you should not make it like a religion. People get so obsessed with eating the right kind of food that becomes like an obsession. It is only, like Swamiji very beautifully explained, it is only for health. You don't make it your sole passion and obsession. Similarly, activity, sleep, he says very nicely, you know, according to your constitution, how much sleep you require. You can play around it by half an hour, 45 minutes, but longer than that or too less than that, then it will affect your health. So like what Percy Ji said yesterday, according to our own composition, you decide how many meals you need to have, and then uh, mm, you you have a rough measure of the amount of quantity you have to eat, and not make it so very, you should not get finicky about it. I have seen people who, well, I used to be like that. Why should I talk about others? Initially, when I did the course, when they said no onion, garlic, very naturally, my body was not taking it up. But later on, when you're invited to someone's house, you can't be finicky and say, oh, I don't eat onion, garlic. And that is what they have prepared. So there you have to kind of let go a little bit. Don't become so finicky and obsessive that it becomes binding for you in your mind. These only they're only guidelines, and you work within these guidelines. That is one I wanted to share. And the second is the second verse that we read, the nisprihaha, and how when you're in that Atma Tattva, you're in that oneness, there is no longing because you're the only one. So when you're the only one and you're all you're full in yourself, there is no need for you to desire in order to become full. You are fullness. So that was a beautiful takeaway from the second verse. And when you're in that space, when you're functioning from that space of fullness, out of knowledge that you are nothing but Atma, then the question of what we were talking about, multitasking and all that, actually becomes not so important. Even that can become a religion, that can itself become a binding. So we need to be aware that these the disciplines that we bring about in our life should not themselves be binding. I would just like to share also, before anyone else can share. There is this person in the ashram who would touch Gurudev's picture and take blessings and then go wherever he was. And he was once asked to drive Gurudev. And then for him, this discipline or this routine had become such a part of his routine. It was like his discipline, like his religion. Here, Gurudev was there waiting in the car, and then he rushed. He said, wait, let me finish this. He went to Gurudev's picture, took his blessings and came. Here he is taking him. The person whose blessings he's seeking is right beside him. So that is these disciplines that we include in our life should not become binding. It is not saying you should become lax about it. No, it is about being aware out of knowledge. When you do it, that consciously, deliberately, you're doing it, it becomes fulfilling and liberating in itself. Yeah, I just wanted to share these.
Jai Gurudev, a small thing. During Chayana's Swadhyay, he mentioned one word, avadani. And to elaborate that, he said there are people who is ashtavadani, shatavadani. That is people who are doing 8 things at a time, 100 things at a time. And at the same time, Guruji was also taking the meditation, which include 3 levels, man, mind, breath, and body. I took it that way. That is a skill. Avadani, Shatavadani, Ashtavadani is a skill you have to develop. Jai Gurudev.
What is this Swamiji told about Viharasya? I was not there that time. Viharasya means taking rest also? Or what is the meaning there?
Sleep. food, sleep, and activities.
No, vihara.
Vihara is activity.
Activity only. Or
sleep is rest is covered in sleep, no? Swapna
yukta
is covered.
ahara vihara.
And yukta swapna is also there. So swapna
Eating,
is
Who is
considered
moderate in eating and other activities. Vihara is other activities. Otherwise, we feel vihara means leisure, you know. That is what, there was confusion little for me. Okay then, good.
activities, he said, he had described all those that you do with your limbs.
It includes rest also. Yeah, good.
Yeah. There are some people who overwork, no? They do too much of work. That is also not, so basically extremes of anything. Moderation is the key. Balance is the key.
जय गुरुदेव, विहार इज, मुझे लगता है चलना फिरना, दौड़ना, बैठना, खड़े होना, इधर उधर जाना वगैरह वगैरह. That Hindi word is that vihar. And for rest, he has given a separate word, nidralasya. Jai Gurudev.
Thank you.
And another thing about, there was one para where he talks about how long should I have to do this? When will I get? So the question of when will I get is not there. Because every moment, for me, that aspect was like, if you're in the moment, that moment itself is fulfilling. And if your life is lived in the present moment, and every moment you're there, fully aware and awake, that itself is fulfillment. That itself is living in the Atma Tattva.
Know that how long question will come only when you are in dukkha. That is what he had told, you know, especially. So when we are following the sukha, means the atma, which is always shanti, you know, so that question doesn't come at all. That is what they.
Correct, that is true. So how do you practically apply this to our daily life? For
To
that,
be with atma means
how
you
how
are.
how that is where I think living in
Meditation.
the present moment, because the present moment is only joy, right? So when that is the whole, the crux of art of living is bringing the mind to the present and living in the present. So when you're doing that and you're doing it consciously, you are with the Atma Tattva, you are there. So where is the dukkha then for you? And in order to get to live in the present moment, All these disciplines are required. This yuktahara viharasya, yukta swapnavabodhasya, yukta cheshta. Yukta cheshta is another thing, right? So vihara was one, and yukta cheshta was all the activities, I think. That is what Bela, can you just go up to that paragraph that talks about yukta cheshta? I think that is where he talked about
here, Yukta Cheshta.
gymming and
Yeah, Ayukta Cheshta and Yukta Cheshtas. We
No, the
all know
chesta meaning. First is chesta's meaning. Can you look into it? Word meaning.
Why one needs a sense of proportion in one's activities. Cheshtas are activities. We all know what happens if we want to do too many things at the same time. The end result is that nothing gets done. You want to do a certain thing and suddenly you remember something else. So you leave what you are doing and you go to other activity. Then you remember something else and off you go again. Some people cannot even take a bath without becoming distracted by other things they want to do at the same time. These people are ayukta cheshtas, whereas ayukta cheshta does each thing that is to be done deliberately and consciously. Even the hand movements of the person are done consciously. In fact, this is what the life of a Zen master is all about. Watching his or her every movement, watching what the hands are doing and where they go becomes a form of meditation for the person.
so how is this cheshta different from vihara? Can I request you to go to the word meaning? And I think soon after that, Swamiji had talked about vihara.
Here, you mean in the shloka?
In the shloka, yeah.
Yeah, yukta hara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapnava bodhasya, yogo bhavati dukkha. Yukta ahara viharasya, for one who is moderate in eating and other activities, karmasu with reference to one's duties, yukta cheshtasya, for one who is moderate in effort, yukta swapna avabodhasya, for one who is moderate in terms of sleeping and waking hours, dukkha, the destroyer of sorrow, yoga, meditation, bhavati, becomes. For one who is moderate in eating
No, the
and other activities.
chesta is here duties and effort, not the activity, duties.
Duties is karmasu. The meaning for cheshta is effort.
Is effort.
That is what is put, yeah.
Effort.
Prayatna.
That is effort.
Here it is, this is very important. The person is described here as yukta ahara vihara, one whose eating and other activities are proper, yukta cheshta, one whose activities are proper, and yukta swapna avabodha, one whose sleeping and waking hours are properly apportioned. In other words, this person follows a certain life of discipline, which in itself is a yoga that destroys the sorrow of samsara. Yogo bhavati dukkha.
Like for every shloka, we will have to put up a mirror. The shloka has to be like a mirror And we will have to look into our own selves, our own lives, our mental framework, and see how much of the shloka are we actually following, and where we have to fine tune ourselves. Is it with respect to food, with respect to sleep, with respect to activities? And the way Swamiji described the Yukta Cheshta in that paragraph is like when you're doing something, you remember something, and then you go. That is my problem. That happens to me time and again. So if you're able to regulate and consciously, deliberately complete one task completely before going on to the other, and then again there you prioritize which is more important, then there is that element of um, I think he mentioned a particular word there. It becomes meditative itself, like the Zen master. For him, even the movements of his hands are like meditative. They're not just random movements. Even drinking tea itself is meditative. Walking itself is meditative. So it again brings us back to the fact that you're bringing your mind to the present. You're completely aware, fully aware of what all you're doing, including what you're saying, how you're saying.
See, everything is from hands only. Any activity you do by hand. Eating, everything, whatever. Hands are the main thing for any karma.
No, we have karmendriyas, you have other karmendriyas also. It's not just
So
hands.
yes, but
You use your legs also, no?
yeah. But
To walk. So
hand is to
karmendriyas,
beat.
he is given the example of hands because there is it hands and etc. It means, I think, includes all the karmendriyas. Remember that story where, I think it's already 6:30, that story where the person goes, he hears about the Zen master, that he's got a lot of followers, and he's very inspired. He wants to go and spend some time with him in his monastery. So when he goes there, he finds that this master is doing everything that an ordinary person does. There's nothing extraordinary that he's doing. So he questions this person out of inquisitiveness, asks him. He says, what is it that gives you this greatness, that so many people are following you, but I don't find you doing anything extraordinary? Then the master says, when I walk, I walk. When I eat, I eat. When I drink, I drink. But you, when you walk, you're also thinking of so many things. When you're eating, you're not just eating, your mind is full of so many thoughts. So that is the difference. So that is that conscious, deliberate doing where your mind, again, it comes to that, what is that word? Where your mind, word, and deed, all of them are in the arjavam. They're all in sync. So the Zen master has that arjavam. So his every movement, every activity becomes meditative. So life itself is meditation. Meditation is life, like we read yesterday. And it's not just a technique. It is when you are whole, when you're complete, then automatically your longing and desires drop. Yeah, if there's anybody else who wants to share, we will. Otherwise, we can close maybe.
One request regarding the advanced course, we still have just about 8-10 people registered, and What has happened here is that the course that after post Gurudev's events that they have kept in April for all the advanced course. So this is not a part of that. So I'm not able to get the other 8-10 people from my side. If all of us can get 1 or 2 people each is a request. Otherwise, probably we may need to postpone it to some time next month or so. What do we do?
No, I think it's a humble request to all of us here who have actually committed to doing the advanced course. If we can complete our registrations, that is number one. And second, like Percy G has mentioned, if we can speak and inspire 1 or 2 of our known people also to join in, that will make the minimum 20. That is what he is asking for. So then another request is for Sureshji, if you have already registered, if you can just help me also register and give me your details so I can Prem can transfer the amount.
No, already I think Maltese has done for you, I think. I saw
No, she's done for herself.
Herself. Okay,
herself.
Then. Okay, I will do that.
So if you can help me out, that will be great.
Yeah.
My registration also will be
done. Okay. I'm not good at that phone. My wife has to do it, so I was waiting for it. Okay, I will do that.
Okay. Yeah. And maybe if we can in 1 or 2 days work on this one wholeheartedly and completely so that we finish. So this is off Percy G's mind. Otherwise, it's like, he's concerned about that.
Yesterday only. My colleague, my co-teacher, he was with me. He had visited me. I told him to join.
Yeah,
but he is more into, he is not so good in English. So he was telling, no, Percy is also in Hindi. You can join, I told him.
Yeah.
This course is going to be in Hindi and English, both with Gurudev also speaking in both languages.
Both languages. I told him that.
Everything is done in both languages because online was done during pandemic. Guruji has covered every topic in both languages. Actually, some of us who are only English speaking will have to put up with Gurudev speaking in Hindi also.
Hindi, yeah, that's fine. That's perfectly okay.
No, I told him that way. Because he is from North India, some Debora or something, Bengali or this. So
when I speak, I cover both languages. I'm used to that.
I know that. I told him the same thing. He is from Bombay and he will tell you in very simple language, Hindi, I told him.
Yeah, very good. So let's do our 100% and make this course happen.
Okay, thanks for it, everybody.
Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
धन्यवाद सर्वेभ्यः.